So here for example 1, what we're going to do is we're going to sketch the cosine curve. And if you remember, the cosine curve is going to give us a like a cup shape. We'll see, sideways C shape. It's going to look something like this. Make sure it's a nice curve. You have your first point here at the beginning, second point at the end, halfway in between. You have a point, and then halfway in between each of these, you have your fourth and your fifth point. So what we need to do is we need to graph this on the whole interval from negative pi over 2 to 9 pi over 2. Excuse me. Well, let's find our intervals here. Let's make each of these boxes a distance of pi over 2. So this will be a pi over 2 here. 1/2 plus a 1/2 is a pi. The remainder of 3 pi over 2. And then we have a 2 pi. And if we were to just draw one cycle from 0 to 2 pi, that'd be great if we could stop there, but we're not. So the next one, well, 2 plus a half is a 2.5 pi, or 5 halves. And if you notice, you got a little pattern here. The next one's going to be, well, you have a 1 pi, skip 1, 2 pi, skip 1, 3 pi, skip 1, 4 pi, skip 1, 5 pi, and you can go on and on and on. Each of these intervals, then, you have a half pi, skip 1, 3 pi over 2, skip 1, 5 pi over 2, skip 1, probably means this will be a 7 pi over 2. Patterns, patterns, patterns. There's my 9 pi over 2, so I'm not going to graph past this 9 pi over 2, so I can get rid of this 5 pi. But then we also need to go start at negative pi over 2. Well, if this is 0 here at your origin, if this is the distance of pi over 2, well, it can't be positive also, it's got to be negative, which means that this would be a negative pi. But since I drew that horrible, we're not going to include negative pi. So what we need to do here is we need to, that's your horizontal, okay? You're going to have your C shape in this distance. Now, it's not going to be just one C, though. We're going to have multiple C's, because one cycle of this, remember, is from 0 to 2 pi. Now, this 3 out front, that's telling us that we're actually going to have a height of 3, not just a height of 1. Back here on our cosine curve, if you have just a 1 in front, then that goes up to 1, and that goes down to negative 1. Well, I think if we throw a 3 in front, that's probably going to move this to a height of, oh yeah, up 3, and then it's also going to be up 3 over here. And if that's at negative 1, probably going to drop all the way down to negative 3. That would make sense since we have a 3 out front. This is a vertical stretch. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our C shape and we are going to stretch it out, and we're going to go up 3 and down 3. So we're going to make each of these boxes 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. And so now we're ready to plot our little C shape. Well, we always start with our original graph. We would start on our vertical axis here at 1, but since we have a 3 out front, we're going to stretch it up here to 3. So there's your first point, 0, 3. And as you go around your circle, your second point would go all the way over to 2 pi, because that's where the end of your first cycle is. So we're going to have this little shape in here. Whoops, that wouldn't be very good. Something like that. Well, halfway in between these 2 points is your third point. Here's pi, but instead of being here, we're going to go down 3. Halfway in between these 2 points, you're going to have a point, which actually crosses your x-axis here, your horizontal axis. And that means that we also have this point over here, halfway in between pi and 2 pi. And you have one cycle of your cosine graph drawn in here. And make sure you give it some curves. Okay, who doesn't like a little graph with some curves? Do not make it a V. If you make it a V, I will take away any ruler that you ever have to draw a straight line. Now here's the problem though. This is only one cycle of our U shape, our cup shape. We need another cycle because we're still going, we have to go from negative pi over 2 to 9 pi over 2. So we need to repeat this same shape. is what we're going to do. So let's see if I can do this. Nope, I'm not going to. So what we're going to do is if you're at 2 pi, then that's your first point. Second point would be at 4 pi. 2 pi plus 2 pi is 4 pi. Halfway in between these two would be at 3 pi, so you're down here. And then you have a point halfway in between 2 pi and 3 pi. Halfway between 3 pi and 4 pi, you have this point here. So you repeat your cup shape. Goes down, up, right there. Well, we need another point. Well, you're not going to graph all of these, but notice this is going to go from here down to here. So it's going to curve down to 9 pi, and you're going to stop there because this gives us our interval. Over here, we need to go the same direction, or need to go the same shape to the left, so we're just repeating it, but this is going down to right here. So what you have is this pretty little shape that is a repetitive shape as you go along here. So that is your cosine curve. And keep in mind, we only used 5 points to graph each cycle of that. Use your max and your min. We use some x and y intercepts, but really what I like to do is I like to do my top point, or my first and my last point, halfway between there, halfway between my first and my middle, halfway between the middle and the last point, right there. And then you draw those in. And that looks kind of like an octopus, but it's also your cosine curve.